Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of Thursday Night Tackle Bites. I'm your host Jim Carr, in for Victor Lynch this week. Now, we had been, the last couple times I've been on, doing a series on striper fishing, but we're going to change up a little bit this week. I'm going to talk about bass fishing, specifically a show that me and Victor went out and did last weekend, because me and Alan Greer from the Triad Bait Company and a couple other guys were going down to Clark's Hill this weekend. And I'm going to try to do a live Thursday night tackle bites next Thursday. I'm sorry, not this weekend, but next Thursday. I'm going to try to do a live Thursday night tackle bites right there on the lake, where we'll be talking about what we're doing down there, striper fishing, and I can get to show you some of the techniques that we're doing and some of the stuff that we're doing down there, run on a live feed. Now, we'll be broadcasting this feed right to Facebook, YouTube, and some of our other video-on-demand platforms, so you're going to want to be sure to watch, and we may even get a fish or two on the live stream. We'll see. Now, what I want to talk about is that last weekend, me and pro staff member Victor Lynch got a chance to go to Randleman Lake and fish it, bass fish it, for the day last Friday. Now, it was kind of a hard day because it had bluebird skies. Victor had got there a few minutes before myself, and he couldn't stand it, so he took about 15-20 minutes and went out there and pre-fished to see if he could get on fish. But the fish just were not very active right off in the morning. So we ended up getting there, and me and the camera guy jumped in the boat, and off we went and fished some places that Victor likes fishing down there. Now, I really like Randleman Lake. Probably it's about the fourth time, I think, third, fourth time I've been on that lake. Eric Stanberry introduced it to me back here last year, and it's a really nice lake. Got some decent structure in it. It's got some good drop-offs, as well as some flat areas for bedding fish and things like that. It's a private, I guess you'd say it's a private lake. They do have a time when they open and close, and you got to be off the water at a certain time. Best thing about it is no jet skis and no ski boats, so that's a pretty good advantage right there. Now, we got down there and started fishing on the lee side. Now, the lee side of the lake is the area of the lake where there's the least wind. And we fished pretty hard and heavy until about 10 o'clock. And what we were doing is we were looking for bedding bass, and we were looking for bass that were cruising the shoreline, looking for places to make beds. The temperature was just right. Everything was just right for them. And we were seeing a lot of bass. We're also seeing a lot of carp, too. But we would throw on some of them bass, and they would just ignore our bait. They weren't really too aggressive at all. You know, if you've watched some of the shows that Victor has done before, he won't stay with one bait for a long period of time if nothing's happened. He'll switch up a lot, and the reason for that is we were trying to find what the bass wanted. Now, about 11 o'clock or so, I put on a lizard, and this was a 4-inch catch-em-up bait, watermelon pepper lizard, okay? And I started throwing that, and I rigged it with, like it was, you know, supposed to be rigged for a Carolina rig. I'll explain that to you in a little bit. And I fished it for probably 15 minutes, and I was getting a few bites, but nothing would pick it up and commit. Finally, after about 15-20 minutes or so, I did have a bass commit. We're going to go to this clip in just a few minutes, and brought him in. It was a pretty decent bass. It was a weighable bass in a tournament. I was glad to see the size of him. Probably it was the biggest bass I guess I caught all winter. But anyhow, let's go to this first clip, and we'll show you how how we caught this fish, talk about it a little bit, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how I rigged up my lizard for some of you guys out there just starting out bass fishing who don't know. Come on, Dad, get one. Got it? All right. Didn't even, all I just felt him was swimming away with the line. Come on up here. All right. I don't like that. It's not bad. I think we can get it out of there. No, we'll cut the hook off. We don't want to kill this fish, guys. He's got that hook down there really good, so if you can't get it out of there without hurting the fish and making him bleed, you're better off just throwing him in. That hook will rust out. You know, and that way you're not going to lose the fish. He's not going to turn up floating. But there you go, right there. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, Steve Sharon, or not, but you said catch you a big one, and that's the biggest one we've caught all day. But anyhow, we'll see if we can't get us a few more. We'll put him back in, and he'll be all right. That hook will rust out of there. There he goes. All right. Well, maybe we broke the dead streak here. Maybe now we'll start getting some fish, right?
I hope so. There's one right up there swimming around.
You're using a 4.5-inch lizard is what we're using, and we haven't caught that. Actually, that fish right there is the deepest fish. I was surprised to see him run with it because that fish was probably 5 or 6 feet. We've been cruising the shoreline looking for bedding fish, and Victor's been spotting a lot of them in there. And we had one pick up the bait back there, and I didn't set the hook fast enough, but this one here found what he wanted, so I'm going to get another bait on and we'll get baited back up and try it again. All right, well, there you have it. Now, like I said, I had the 4-inch catch 'em up bait watermelon pepper lizard, 4-inch lizard, okay? And basically how I was rigging this was just like you would rig up a Carolina rig if you were fishing a worm. And it's a quite popular rig, or a Texas rig. I guess you could do it Texas rig style. But the reason I like a Carolina rig is because you have a leader after your swivel that will let this thing kind of float and kind of be more natural out there on the bottom rather than having the weight right up against the nose of the bait. So that's just my preference, okay? So what you do is you come off your rod, and the first thing you're going to put on is your weight. Now this is just a bullet weight right there, okay? And you put the bullet weight on. Then I usually put a bead, just a small bead that will keep that weight from slamming against the swivel and against your knot. Then you'll put on a swivel. You don't want a very large swivel, but just something to keep the line twist out and just something to keep this weight from going down to the worm. I like anywhere from a 3 to 4 foot leader, and then you tie your hook on. Now the way I use this, now this hook right here is not really the proper hook that I like to use, but it happens to be the only one I have up here right now. But I'm going to show you real quick just how I hook up this bait. So what I do is I'll take my bait just like so and turn it upside down, and I'll take my hook, okay? I'm trying to hold this so you can see how it works, but I'll do the best I can. And just come through the head, and then when you get to the curve, turn and come right out, all right? Now this hook's got a little twist in it. It's a little bit different type worm hook, and I like a straight hook is what I like. But after you do that, then what you're going to do is you're going to turn that hook, and you're going to embed it back in the lizard, just like so, all right? Now I like to leave that hook so you can just barely feel that point of that hook on the other side, and then I'll back it off just a little bit so you don't feel it. That's going to keep you from getting hung up. And that's the rig that I was using where I caught that fish. I had a lot of bites on the lizard. I did take a lot of hits, saw a lot of activity on it. I really expected I would, because I like to use the lizard in the spring when bass are bedding, because a bass will pick that bait up and he'll move it off the bed or move it away from the bed if he's close to it. And this technique, I like to watch the line a lot, because a lot of times what you'll see is you won't feel the hit. All you'll see is you'll see the bass, you'll just see the line going through the water and the line moving. That's a pretty good sign you got a fish on there. So that's one reason why I like that, because it's a really good bait in the springtime for bass fishing. Now that's how I rig it up. Like I say, that's not really the right hook. It just so happened that was the only hook I had, and I guess probably, well, it's not the only hook I had, it's the only pack I had. I grabbed the wrong hook box, what happened, but I guess probably I should have asked Victor for a good hook, but this worked pretty good. Anything I hooked onto it, it stayed hooked. But anyways, I took a lot of hits on the lizard. After a while, it just seemed like they weren't committing to it any longer. So we switched up, and Victor started using a white 4-inch fluke. You know, now that's a fluke, okay? And the thing that's nice about a fluke is that in the middle it's cut. And if you take a look at that cut like that, it's just going to cut a slice in the middle, and that makes it really nice. If I can find the light a little bit better so you can see. I think you can see it now. That makes it nice because you can bury your hook in there, and it makes it really a weedless bait. And Victor was throwing a white one. This happens to be a smoke sparkle catch 'em up baits fluke right here, but Victor was using a white one. Now Victor started throwing a white fluke, and he was pitching it right up into trees. You know, he would pitch right up through into the brush, into the tree, and beyond to the bank. He's really good at pitching things, pitching baits like that, really good accuracy. And he would pull the baits back through the tree. And because this technique right here with this particular bait is so weedless, the only thing that you're going to get hung up on is if it gets twisted around a branch. You fish this without weight. Now, that's the way Victor liked to fish it. Some people may weight it down. The only weight that Victor was using on here was he had the weight of the hook, and that was it. Let's take a look real quick at Victor's fish and watch him catch him. I think you'll be able to see the fluke on there. A lot of this action happened really quick because, to be honest with you, we had a time frame there of about a half an hour where all of a sudden the fish, for a half hour to 45 minutes, the activity just picked up really good, and we were getting a lot of bites, and you had to be on your toes to get a hook set. But let's go ahead and look at this clip of the fish that Victor got. All right, Victor. On the fluke?
On the fluke.
On the fluke. Good show. Right, oh, nice bass. Nice bass. Nice bass. All right. That bottle, I stepped on it. I thought it was breaking something. Oh, yes.
Not bad.
Now,
Little female.
long time coming, huh?
Yeah.
Gosh darn, man.
Took a while.
All right, way to go. Well, we were headed out of this cove and almost didn't think we were going to get anything. We did get bites in here. You caught them off the end of that tree over there, didn't you?
Yep, right off the end of that log there.
Great. Let's go get another one.
Shade because it's not, not much cloud cover today.
No, there's not.
So they're going to hold a little tighter to that.
All right, like I was saying now, that fish there was caught on a fluke. Victor had a lot of bites on his top water bait, his clear top water bait, and he would throw that top water bait out, and he would twitch it about 3 or 4 times, and it seemed like he was getting the bite when the bait stopped, and he started to pick up and twitch it again when he was getting a bite. But, you know, we got 6 hooks on it, and he couldn't get the fish to come in. I think they were hitting it with a closed mouth and just knocking it up in the air is all they were doing. Now, this next fish I caught on what I call a floating worm. Now, this probably is not a floating worm. This is our 6-inch finesse worm. It's yellow pepper is what we call it. And my last fish that I caught, but I had a lot of bites on this. I had a lot of takedowns and hits. And then again, I fished this top water. I didn't let this get down more than a foot deep. The same thing with the fluke. Everything that we started to get our hits on, believe it or not, was within a foot of the from the top, the surface of the water. So anyways, I rigged this worm up, and I had a swivel on. I don't usually use a swivel when I'm using a floating worm. I was lazy, and I didn't want to change hooks and change baits and tie lines, so I just kept a swivel on there. Now I fished that bait about a foot down. At all times I could see that bait. That's, when I fish a floating worm, I mean, some guys will fish them, and what they'll do is they will hook them in the center, and they'll hook them like that. I don't know. I guess that way works great too. I like this because if you take and you take a look at this little piece right here, this little section of video, you'll see the erratic action every time I snap my rod that bait has. And that's the way I fish that a lot. Doesn't matter what color. Sometimes I might be using the green pumpkin brown pepper worm. Might be using a purple worm. It just the color really is going to matter on the water clarity and what the fish are doing. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at this next clip where I caught the last fish I caught the day that I actually boated on this 6-inch finesse worm here, rigged kind of floating style. Oh, there he is, there he is. Oh yeah. Come on. It's on that. Whoa, Mr. Cameraman, sorry about that. Another good one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Laid out.
What do you think about that there, Steve? Caught him on that. That's that 6-inch finesse worm, that catch 'em up bait. Yellow pepper is what that is. And Victor, he's using a fluke right now, but it just seems like all of a sudden we come into this cove, and that's what, the third blow up we've had on these baits. And what we're doing, let me put this fish back in the water. I've got mine like a floating worm, and I'll tell you, I was getting ready to change because Victor's already had 3 fish blow up on that fluke. And I'm just rigging that so it's like a floating worm. The only weight I have on there is that swivel. And it's the same thing with any of you guys that use flukes. You know how the action looks, and the worm looks the same way. Now, whether it's the action that's triggering these fish to bite or what, I don't know, but it just seems like here in this cove, like they've turned on. Gosh, we've tried a different, we've tried shade, we've tried everything. We're back out in the sunlight now, and the fish are biting, so we're just going to try doing what we're doing. The way we were able to catch them fish that particular day, I guess my point is, don't give up and quit. If something's not working after 15, 20 minutes or half an hour, try something else. Try a different bait. Try a different area. We did switch from the lee side of the lake over to the windward side where the wind was blowing. That's where we caught them fish, was on the windward side, and that's where we got most of our top water activity. And it wasn't really windy, but I think there was just enough chop to break the brightness of the sun, so they were coming up and hitting these baits. But don't quit when you're out there. Try different baits. And at the end of the day, if you haven't caught anything, I guess you can say they just weren't biting, or we just couldn't find them. But, if you quit, you never know what's going to happen. I've been out and seen fish, and fish for 2 or 3 hours, and then it's just like you turn the light switch on, all of a sudden they start feeding and they start biting, and you catch fish for the rest of the day. It doesn't always happen like that, but it happens often enough. So don't quit. Keep on trying. Watch a lot of Victor and Eric's shows that they're going to be doing, and a lot of their live streams, and they'll be showing you different tips and things like that they use bass fishing. These are just tips, and they're just techniques we use. We're not saying you got to use what we're showing you. We're just saying this works for us, and it might work for you. Anyways, that's it for this week's Thursday Night Tackle Bites. I want to thank everybody for watching us. Hey, folks, don't forget to check out our website at www.carolinaoutdoormagazinetv.com. A lot of things going on there. We try to update it about every few weeks. We're going to be having the guys do a biography here and telling us a little bit about themselves and putting their pictures up here pretty quick, along with a lot of other things going on. So don't forget to check that out. I'm Jim from Carolina Outdoor Magazine TV for this week's Thursday Night Tackle Bites. Next week, Victor will be back. And I want to thank you for watching this week's show, like always. Thanks for your support. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you somewhere next week in the great outdoors when we do it all again.